It was one of those nights when the world felt unusually still, the kind of silence that makes every small sound echo twice as loud. Ethan sat alone in his living room, the soft hum of the refrigerator in the background and the distant ticking of an old wall clock marking each passing second. Outside, rain tapped gently against the windows, not heavy enough to be a storm, but steady enough to feel unsettling. Then it happened. A single knock. Not loud, not rushed. Just one slow, deliberate knock. Ethan straightened in his chair, confusion flickering across his face. Nobody ever came to his house this late, not in the middle of a quiet suburban street where neighbors locked up by 9 p.m. For a moment he wondered if he imagined it, but then the knock came again. A little louder, a little heavier. His heartbeat began to rise. Heading toward the front door, he hesitated halfway. His mind raced with possibilities. Maybe a neighbor needed help. Maybe someone's car broke down. Or maybe it was just some harmless delivery mistake. But deep inside, a subtle instinct whispered that something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Ethan approached the door slowly, his bare feet silent against the wooden floor. The porch light flickered. It always flickered on rainy nights, casting a shaky glow across the frosted glass panel of the door. A shadow moved behind it. Someone was definitely standing there. He cleared his throat, trying to steady his voice. "Hello? Who's there?" No answer. Just quiet breathing on the other side. Against his better judgment, against the cold prickles spreading across his skin, Ethan unlocked the door. The old latch clicked louder than usual. As he pulled the door open, the warm light from inside spilled out onto the porch, revealing a figure completely drenched from head to toe, water dripping from a hood that hid their face. The stranger said nothing, just stood there unmoving, and Ethan realized he had just made a decision he might not survive. For a moment, Ethan could only stare at the drenched stranger standing on his porch. Rainwater pooled at their feet, dripping steadily from the edges of a dark hood pulled low over their face. The night air felt colder now, as if the temperature had dropped the moment the stranger appeared. Finally, the figure lifted their head slightly. Not enough for Ethan to see their full face, but enough to reveal pale skin and trembling lips. I need help," the stranger whispered, voice shaky and thin. "Someone's following me." Ethan blinked, instinct screaming at him to shut the door, lock every bolt, and call the police. But the fear in the stranger's voice felt real, too real to ignore. "Who's following you?" Ethan asked cautiously, keeping one hand on the door, ready to close it if needed. The stranger didn't answer immediately. Instead, they turned their heads slowly, staring into the darkness far beyond Ethan's porch, toward the empty street where rain fell in shimmering sheets. "He was right behind me," the stranger murmured. "I don't know where he went, but he doesn't stop." Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. "You ran here?" "Yes." "Why my house?" The stranger swallowed hard. "Because your light was on." The answer made Ethan uneasy. Every house on the street was dark except his. It wasn't unusual. He often stayed up late working, but the coincidence bothered him. Still, the stranger was shaking, dripping, clearly terrified. "Please," the stranger whispered again, stepping forward slightly. "Just for a moment. Let me inside. I can explain." Ethan hesitated. 100 warnings flashed through his mind. News stories, crime documentaries, every bad decision that started with helping a stranger. But then the stranger added softly, "If you don't let me in, he'll find me." Something about that sentence felt heavier, darker, like it carried a truth Ethan didn't understand yet. Against every instinct telling him to walk away, he stepped aside.
"All right, come in."
The stranger crossed the threshold without another word. And the moment the door closed, the atmosphere inside the house shifted, subtly but unmistakably, as if Ethan had just trapped something dangerous inside with him. The moment the stranger stepped inside, Ethan felt the energy of the house change, a faint but undeniable heaviness, like the air had thickened. The living room, usually warm and welcoming, suddenly felt colder, shadows stretching longer across the walls. The stranger stood motionless just inside the doorway, dripping water onto the wooden floor. Ethan gestured toward the couch. "You can sit if you want." Slowly, almost reluctantly, the stranger walked toward the sofa and lowered himself onto it. He didn't remove his hood, didn't wipe the water from his face, didn't even look around the room like a normal, scared person might. He just sat, hands on his knees, body rigid, head slightly tilted toward the hallway. Ethan cleared his throat. "Do you want a towel? Something warm to drink?" No response, not even a nod. Instead, the stranger's breathing grew louder, slow, deep, unnatural, as if every inhale took effort, as if his lungs were struggling with the very air in the room. Ethan tried again. "Look, you said someone was following you. You should tell me what's going on so I can help you." The stranger finally moved, but not in a way Ethan expected. His head turned toward Ethan, but the rest of his body stayed perfectly still. The motion was too smooth, almost mechanical. "Help," the stranger echoed, voice low, distorted by something Ethan couldn't quite place. "Yes, you can help." Ethan's pulse quickened. The way the stranger spoke didn't match the fear he showed earlier. It felt rehearsed. Empty. A drop of water slid from the stranger's sleeve, but instead of dripping normally, it trailed in a strange, zigzag pattern before hitting the floor. Ethan blinked, unsure if he was imagining it. "Who exactly is following you?" Ethan asked, stepping back slightly. The stranger shifted again, this time leaning forward, fingers slowly curling. "He comes when you least expect it," the stranger whispered. Then he smiled, a small, unnatural curve barely visible beneath the hood. And Ethan realized something horrifying. The stranger wasn't looking toward the hallway earlier. He was listening to it, as if something or someone was already inside the house with them. Ethan's nerves were already stretched thin. The stranger's strange posture, the unnatural breathing, the eerie smile, everything inside him screamed that something was wrong. Horribly wrong. He tried to stay calm, moving slowly toward the kitchen counter where his phone was charging. "Stay here," Ethan said quietly. "I'm just grabbing a towel." The stranger didn't respond, didn't move, didn't blink. He simply tilted his head again, as though listening to something Ethan couldn't hear. Ethan picked up his phone, more for comfort than anything, and that's when it buzzed in his hand. A call. Unknown number. But the area code was local. With a shaky breath, Ethan answered. "Hello." A stern voice came through immediately. "Is this Ethan Grant?" "Yes, who's this?" "This is Officer Daniels with the county police. We need you to listen carefully." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What's going on?" The officer didn't waste time. "There's a dangerous individual in your neighborhood tonight. He's impersonating a lost victim to gain entry into homes. If anyone knocks on your door..." Ethan froze. His eyes drifted toward the living room, toward the silent, unmoving stranger sitting on his sofa. "Do not let them inside," the officer continued. "We believe he's responsible for multiple break-ins and..." Ethan interrupted, voice trembling. "Someone already knocked. He's inside right now." There was a sharp, tense pause on the other end. "Sir, listen to me very carefully," the officer said, voice lowering. "Do not make sudden movements. Stay calm. We're 3 minutes away. Ethan's breaths quickened. What does he look like? How do I know it's him? The officer replied, He'll appear cold, wet, disoriented, acting scared to earn your trust. Don't engage. Don't confront. Just keep your distance. Ethan swallowed hard. That was exactly how the stranger appeared, at first. Slowly, Ethan turned his head back toward the living room. The stranger was no longer sitting. He was standing, facing Ethan. Still, silent, and somehow smiling wider than before. The officer spoke again, voice urgent. Sir, whatever you do, don't let him out of your sight. But Ethan already had a terrifying realization. He hadn't heard the stranger stand up. Not a single sound. For a moment, neither Ethan nor the stranger moved. The room felt unnaturally still, the kind of stillness that makes your ears ring. Ethan's mind raced as he gripped his phone tighter, the officer's warning echoing in his head. The stranger stood no more than 10 feet away, hood still dripping, face half hidden in shadow, yet somehow the smile was perfectly visible. Too visible. It stretched wider than any human smile should. Ethan took one cautious step back. Stay right there, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. The stranger didn't obey, didn't react, didn't even blink. Instead, he tilted his head slowly to one side, like a puppet hinging on a loose joint. Why are you backing away, Ethan? Hearing his name from the stranger's mouth made his skin crawl. He was sure he had never introduced himself. How do you know my name? Ethan demanded. The stranger inhaled deeply, a long, rattling breath that sounded wrong in the quiet room. Then the voice changed. Low, deep, echoing in a way that didn't belong to a human throat. I've known your name for a very long time. Ethan felt a cold wave wash over him. This wasn't an impersonator. This wasn't a criminal. This was something else entirely. The stranger stepped forward, and with that single movement, water fell from his body in thick, unnatural streams, as though he had just stepped out of a lake rather than light rain. You humans, the stranger continued, voice layered with something ancient, always open the door when someone pretends to be afraid. Ethan backed toward the hallway. What are you? He whispered. The stranger lifted a finger to his lips. Sure. The others are listening. The others? Ethan repeated. The stranger leaned closer, the hood sliding back just enough to reveal a pale, distorted face, like something trying to imitate a human but failing in small, horrifying ways. Then he spoke one final sentence, soft but chilling. You invited me in, and now I'm not the only one here. A faint creaking sound echoed from the dark hallway behind Ethan. Someone else was inside the house, and they had been waiting for this moment. Ethan's breathing grew sharp and uneven as the stranger's words echoed in his skull. I'm not the only one here. The house, his safe, familiar home, suddenly felt like a cage he had willingly stepped into. The faint creak from the hallway returned, louder this time, followed by the sound of something brushing lightly against the wall. Not footsteps, something softer, almost gliding. Ethan forced himself not to look away from the stranger as he slowly backed toward the kitchen counter. His fingers trembled as he reached for the nearest thing that could serve as a weapon, a metal flashlight. He gripped it tightly. It felt pathetically small. The stranger watched him with that same unnatural smile, the kind that didn't match the eyes. The hood had slipped back further now, revealing a face that seemed unfinished. Too smooth in some places, too sharp in others, like clay that had been molded by someone who had seen humans only from afar. Then, without warning, the stranger's head snapped toward the front door, as if hearing something Ethan couldn't. They're here, he whispered. His voice carried that inhuman echo again. The ones chasing me. Ethan's heart leapt. Police officers. It had to be. Relief flooded through him. But the stranger's grin widened even more. Oh, you think they're coming to help you? Before Ethan could react, bright red and blue lights flashed through the curtains. Car doors slammed. Heavy boots hit the ground. The police. Finally. Through the window, Ethan saw them moving into position, weapons drawn, scanners in hand. One officer looked at his device, frowned, and spoke into his radio. Dispatch confirmed this. We're reading 2 heat signatures inside the home, but visual shows only one figure near the living room. Ethan froze. 2? But only he and the stranger were. A soft breath brushed against the back of his neck. Close. Too close. He turned slowly and saw absolutely nothing. But the stranger whispered gently from across the room, "He's standing right behind you." And the temperature of the house dropped like someone had opened a door to a frozen world. Ethan didn't dare breathe. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to scream, to do anything, but terror locked his muscles in place. The stranger, still standing across the room, watched him with an expression that was almost gleeful, as if the real show had finally begun. Outside, the police were shouting commands, but their voices felt distant, muffled by the oppressive silence inside the house. The officer's earlier words replayed in Ethan's mind. 2 heat signatures. One was Ethan. The second was something he couldn't see. A cold shiver ran down his spine, like icy fingers trailing across his skin. He forced himself to turn his head slightly, expecting the invisible presence to reveal itself, but the air behind him remained empty. Quiet. Still. Then a soft drip, drip, drip echoed from the hallway. Water. The same strange, thick water that fell from the stranger's body. Ethan slowly stepped backward, eyes darting toward the source of the sound. The stranger didn't stop him, didn't move, didn't even blink. He simply whispered, almost fondly, "You really shouldn't have opened that door." Ethan reached the edge of the hallway and peeked around the corner. His heart nearly stopped. A trail of wet footprints, dark, muddy, and unnervingly large, led down the corridor. They weren't shaped like human feet. The toes were too long, and the heel was missing like whatever made them didn't walk but slid. The trail ended at Ethan's bedroom door. A door that was now half open, even though he was certain he'd closed it earlier. The lights flickered. The house groaned. And from the darkness of his bedroom, a soft whisper drifted out, a whisper that sounded exactly like his own voice. "Ethan, help me." His blood ran cold. Behind him, the front door burst open as officers stormed inside, but the moment they did, the stranger vanished. Not ran, not slipped away. He simply disappeared, dissolving like mist. All that remained were the wet footprints, leading into Ethan's room. And as the officers approached the doorway, the whisper came again, louder, clearer, impossible to ignore. "Close the door, he's coming back." And the screen cuts to black.